Looking back at your past relationships, how have you been a crappy boyfriend? I was reminiscing about past romantic playthroughs, as I usually do, because playing Ireland single player mode tends to keep you stuck on certain levels, and realized I was a pretty crappy boyfriend to the one that got away. What's worse is that I actually thought I was a good boyfriend because we just almost never fought about anything, so I took that as indicative of a healthy relationship. She was, however, one of the most patient angels I was unaware of having met. One of the more memorable moments I'm hung up on, that I'll look back on in disgust, is this one time where she was driving to my house and her car broke down in the middle of the street late at night by the 7/11. That was a 5-minute walk from my house, or a 2-minute drive from my house. She called me with concern in her voice, almost trembling, saying she needed help pushing her car off the street. I told her to put it in neutral and push it to the side, then to call a tow truck or something. I'm so ashamed to say that she complied with what I said in the sweetest and most understanding okay I've ever heard. The reason I didn't want to go and help was because I was playing ranked Gears of War. Can you believe that? What's worse is that I justified my decision by telling myself that she's a grown woman and should be able to handle it herself. Man, if I could go back and kick myself. Luckily some stranger was kind enough to help her get it off the street. She then proceeded to wait for both her dad and the tow truck, all while she was texting me at home, 0.2 minutes away. I've reflected and grown as a person since then, but man, I still can't believe how shitty that was of me. One of the things she told me after we broke up was that dating me felt more like being a mother than being a girlfriend, and I'd dwell on that a lot. A couple of my previous partners refused to ever lose an argument. They would scale up the argument until I caved. This conditioned me pretty early on to avoid conflict at all costs, which lead to some pretty unhealthy relationships. And going along with that, I was dishonest at times. I lied to avoid conflict, sometimes about really trivial things. I've been working on unlearning all of that. My policy with my current so is to just be honest about everything, even if it's something she doesn't want to hear. It makes things so much simpler. Not opening up enough, saying I love you, or being emotionally 100% in. I've been in 3 or 4 relationships up to 1 year in length, but I've never been in love, although they have. I've always been a good boyfriend, but I've never been able to give all that I want to give and fully commit. I always thought about buying just because flowers on my way to their apt, but never did because it felt too serious. I always wanted to say I love you, but I never felt like it was 100% genuine, or maybe I just wasn't ready for the implications. That is that this is now a very serious relationship and we now have to get married or go through a devastating breakup. I don't know. I don't think I have a good understanding of what being in love truly means. I'm starting therapy next week to try to figure out how I can get over this hump and be the boyfriend or husband I want to be. I was only a crappy boyfriend during my first relationship. Also my longest one. Also my best one. See my ex and I met the summer between junior and senior year. She was an exchange student. We met at the county fair. She was from Italy, and I'm being Italian American gave us something to talk about. Didn't take the 17-year-old us very long to fall in love. It was the kind of sweet, innocent, I just want to make you happy kind of love. School let out, and she had to go back. But we didn't want to break up. So we decided I would go with her. I ended up in Italy, winning over the heart of her father immediately, and a sense of undeserved, unprovoked hatred from her mother. Her father lined me up with a decent job, although it was factory work, and I paid them rent to cover any expenses incurred by my presence and a gesture of goodwill toward her mother, who I thought mere kindness would work. My efforts were in vain. By New Year's her mother had demanded that I leave. We cried it out together but laughed too. The Italian embassy gave me a right of blood citizenship, and we had already gotten a K1 visa applied for. I went back to my hometown, landed another factory job, saved up, and she flew in about a month after I shipped out to college. Things were good at first. but somehow I lost sight of just being kind to her and loving toward her or appreciating her sense for adventure. Instead I started seeing her as a liability, because though her visa was approved and she was good to stay, she couldn't work or study yet, and the bureaus were taking forever, and she would become frustrated and take it out on me. What more can I do for you? I'm already working 40 hours a week and taking 20 hours of classes, and I come home just to get yelled at? But she wasn't yelling, just venting. She wanted to do everything just like me, and me being 19 and underdeveloped to withstand pressure, I flipped shit over everything. She saw me cracking under the pressure and still tried to get me to be positive. She still loved me with all of her heart. I chalked her positivity up to stupidity because the pressure had turned me bitter. Eventually some small improvements. She could work and study, and so she did. We began very aware of the problems in our relationship and began to work on them. But now the pressure was on her too. Her mother saw this as the perfect time to get rid of me. Told her that there was no light at the end of the tunnel and that work and school would be everything it would ever be. Beginning to grow kinder again. And if even by a smidge, I tried. But I couldn't get through to her. I couldn't love her enough or be kind enough to her to get past the gloomy words of her mother echoing through her head. I tried and tried, just like she did before, but my efforts failed. One day she told me she was going back. I was confused. I had conceded to every demand of hers, changed myself. I told her that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We'll both one day be done with school and out of this factory, and then be free to live and love together. It's not enough. The damage is done, she said. I begged her to reconsider, to realize she was making a permanent decision based on problems of the past and situations that will pass, and that I'm already becoming better to her. My efforts were in vain. She left, and I was heartbroken. Although I was a toxic bad guy and ignored her needs, snubbed her efforts, and completely lost appreciation for her, and I admit it. The pain of losing her set off a series of decisions, adventures, and transformation that turned me 180 degrees for the better. I'm wiser for what I've done. She would be welcome back with open arms today. And if not her, but another, the experiences have made me better. I will not hurt the next girl who loves me, if another one ever does. Sometimes I think that the crappy experiences I've had in dating since then are a form of karmic penance for me to pay for breaking her heart because she was so good. That somehow the only way for me to make it right is by resigning to be alone. I'm usually a decent boyfriend, but I have had episodes of insecurity, clinginess, and being emotionally unintelligent that ended up hurting my partner. My first long relationship ended on a bad note because I was too much of a wuss to break up when I saw it wasn't working anymore. So we kept it going until we snapped, and it ended in tears and slammed doors. Also this summer I was bad to a girl that really wanted to be with me, but I only saw her as a rebound. I didn't treat her like crap, but I found myself being emotionally distant and not affectionate enough as I would be to someone I really like. Even though she knew what I felt, I still feel like I led her on and should have just stayed single. Those are 2 episodes I'm really ashamed of. The rest were just awkward moments of me being an bumbling idiot. These happened very often in bed. From what I've experienced, this is a pretty common problem, but I have a really hard time saying the words I love you. In my household these words were very taboo, and I never said them or had them said to me. At 17 had my only real relationship. We were together for years, and among a few things I know I could have done better reflecting on it now. Initiating saying those words I found impossible. If she said it I could, but I could never just say it on my own. I still find it impossible to say to anyone. It's the only thing that I just choke up at and say AHHUMN. Yeah, at every time. She voiced her concern at it, and I acknowledged it and told her I had a hard time saying it. She mostly understood as she knew my childhood background well, but that's not enough. You need to know your partner loves you. We grew apart from other reasons, but my lack of showing compassion, visibly putting an effort, surely sped things along. Still feels bad. We were in Target, and she was smelling every stinky candle in the aisle. All of them one by one. I got impatient and said something about trying get out of there. She yelled at me, just leave me alone. I said okay and got in the car and drove home. She had to walk home, and it started to rain. The next day she called me and asked if I was still mad at her, but she also had the sniffles from walking in the rain. Felt like a piece of crap. Comment and subscribe.